Would you take time off work to help your children with their exams? Today we learned that the boss of the Co-op's food division is doing precisely that. She's called Jo Whitfield and she's stepping away from the business to help her two sons. One is doing A-levels this summer, the other GCSEs. Well, not everyone can afford to do this. One of my sisters works on the tills of her local co-op and certainly couldn't make ends meet by going on unpaid leave. Jo Whitfield can, but then she took home £1.4 million in 2020. So while we can admire perhaps the maternal instincts of a woman who wants to help her kids revise, we might reflect on how not everyone has that luxury. So for today's debate, I'm asking, it's rather bluntly put, but it fits on the caption strap, should women put kids before careers? Joining me for the debate, the editor of the About Time magazine, Angelica Malin, and still with me, the political commentator, Alice Grant. Thanks both. Angelica, we'll start with you. We were just talking, Alice and I, during the commercial break about this, and people talk about career breaks with kids, don't they, for child rearing? And it tends to apply at that part of your life when the kids are little. They're in a cradle, or they're in nappies, or they're in a buggy. But actually, there's a way of looking at what this woman is doing that says, actually, yeah, OK, it's still a career break to raise her kids, but just a little bit later than normally is the case.
Well, I think that's what's made it newsworthy, that she is taking this break later on. Like you said, it's not at the kind of start of the career when you've just had babies. So that's what's unusual about it. I would say in this instance, it's less of a career break in that she's already really high flying and she's kind of made it already. So taking a break at this time is probably less important than when you're early on in your career. And that's when we see the struggle of women getting back into work when they've taken quite significant time off earlier in their careers.
Also, Alice, she's not going off to, find herself. She's not sailing around the Caribbean. She's knuckling down. She's for 4 months to help her two sons, one who's doing GCSEs this summer, the other doing A-levels. She's not taking it easy.
As someone who only completed my A-levels just 2 years ago, I still remember the amount of stress you're under as a young teenager, and to have my mother there as a support for me was of invaluable help. So I do think that it is very certainly important that you have your parents there to support you, especially when, exams do take an enormous strain on mental health as well with young people. So I do think that she's obviously coming from a position of privilege here. But if just the question alone, careers over kids, it just sounds very wrong. I think children should always come first.
Angelica, the little spider sense tingles whenever I heard the word privilege, because I'm not sure that's the right word, Alice, if you don't mind me saying. I think she's part of an elite. But she's made that happen. I mean, I don't know the Jo Whitfield story, but you don't get to be the head of the food division at the Co-op and earn 1.4 million quid a year without working really hard. That's not privilege.
No doubt she's worked hard, but I think I would myself consider myself in a very privileged situation as well, just by the fact that I'm a university student.
It's semantics.
No, but I think the word privilege is something that can be used, obviously. I'm not undermining her hard work. I just think that
I don't know if it's privilege here, though. Privilege to me feels like something you're born into. Like you said, she's worked hard to get to this position. There's a difference between privilege and financial security. She's in a financially secure position to be able to do that. That's slightly different. There's a bit of a nuance within it. But I think it's also a slightly gendered issue. Like, the topic here is whether or not women should put career before kids.
Well, Angelica, there's a bit of the jigsaw that's missing from this story, isn't it? And I don't know. I don't know if there is a Mr. Whitfield or a Ms. Whitfield. I don't know what her arrangement is. I don't know if there is another partner. She may be a single parent. I've no idea.
Well, the thing is, anyway, the family is the bedrock of society, and we need strong families, especially nowadays when more than ever, I think children are growing up sometimes in fractured homes, which is causing enormous crises in mental health. And that is very plain to see even on the London streets. So.
Is that a women's issue, though?
Absolutely.
But you think it's the burdens on the women for that? Because, I mean, I understand being a primary caregiver, but surely the responsibility is joint between men and women to make the family the bedrock. I think this is newsworthy because she's a woman and she's chosen to take a sideline on her career. That's what makes it interesting. But it's normal to take a sideline on your career as a woman. It's kind of expected.
The reason I like this story and was attracted to this story because it is abnormal. I think this is quite weird, quite a weird story. I think it's laudable in many respects. Here's a woman at the top of her game who, I mean, in the period of 4 months, it's unlikely she'll lose that much career momentum. Actually, she's pretty much got to the top of the tree anyway. But I think it's lovely that she's prepared to take 4 months out to help her kids at this crucial juncture. I've got a 16-year-old doing GCSEs. I've got a 17-year-old doing A-levels right now. Their late mother actually took a maths A-level 5 years ago, partly because her brain was turning to blancmange because we had so many children, she was at home, but partly because she wanted to help them with their exams. So there isn't just one way you can help your kids through their exams. There are different ways, and obviously this woman has got the ability to exercise the option.
Where's her husband in all of this is what I want to know.
Well, is she married?
Well,
I don't know. We don't know.
I don't think we should make assumptions on where the husband is. I think that's rather uncharitable. But I think the point here is that there are many women who can successfully balance both careers and being a wonderful mother figure.
I'm being told that she's
women
married.
Like Helena
and
Morrissey, who has 9 children and is the top of the game in finance. So it is
and Richard
possible.
Morrissey, her husband, takes a lot of the responsibility.
Women should never feel that they have to sacrifice their motherhood or raising their children or being there for their children because they want a career. And I think such a sacrifice in itself anyway would be very unwise and lead to regrets in the long term, because your children are ultimately your legacy that will last. So, of course, take care of them.
I don't know.
There's an eyebrow going up there, Angelica.
I think what inspires kids is seeing people work hard, and I don't think it has to be like such a compromise that it's one or the other. Like I had a strong working mother who was always at work, and it's made me work harder. I don't know that I would respect someone who was just like, I'm going to give up all my careers. I mean, I like to believe you can juggle it, but if you can't juggle it, I think that's also okay too.
Well, I come from the exact opposite situation, but I have to say that I think there is definitely, I think women shouldn't have to feel pressured from ardent and fervent feminists to have a career when in fact they want to be mothers. That's the thing, we're all different. Obviously your mother works a very different way from my mother, but the point is that there should be different options, and none of those options should be feel attacked for choosing motherhood over career.
Somebody's feeding information into my ear, probably information I would have checked before we did this item, actually, which is that there is a Mr. Whitfield, and the co-op boss describes him as vital in bringing up the kids. So I think there is a bit of sharing going on, and possibly even the lion's share of the domestic work is done by Mr., not Mrs. Whitfield in this instance. Can I just move this on a little bit? Here is a highly successful executive, done incredibly well with her career, who's taking time out of that career to help her 2 sons in their exams. There is a view, isn't there, that we're obsessed now by exams, we're too credentialed, we're too scholarised, we've created this meritocratic setup where if you fail those A-levels or fail those GCSEs, somehow you're knackered. So let's just entertain that idea. Here is somebody who's made us a part of an elite, a woman who's done very well in her career, who is determined that actually the most important thing right now in her children's lives is that they get an extra push from her to pass some exams. The exams for her are clearly the be-all and end-all.
Well, I don't know. I don't assume her motives for helping her children, but I certainly do agree that there is far too much pressure on young people in terms of exams. I think that it's just got crazy, to be honest. The amount of pressure for 16, 15-year-olds that have for their GCSEs being made to feel like these exams are whether you're going to be successful or not in life, I do think it's wrong. But obviously, pressure is just increasing as the demand that you go to university and get a degree is also increasing, sadly. But I do wish that children felt that there were more options available and that they didn't have to feel so pressured into achieving high grades, numbers and letters.
Angelica, what do you think?
Well, it's about the schooling system overall as well. I mean, perhaps there are factors. I think the exams matter because we put such a pressure on going to a high university, and it's all that beginning stages. I think I remember from the age of 13 feeling that pressure right through to when I went to university of like feeling like there's this timeline of everything. I went to university and I messed around for 3 years, had fun, and I look back on it, I'm like, I didn't need that degree. I ended up working for myself and getting in quite a lot of student debt. So actually, I think you are right. We need to open up some conversations about different routes into work.
Well, we have them. We have them here frequently, and I think that we've got a minute or so left. So I'll just spend that minute if we can, reflecting on what feels like a drift in society now that suggests that Jo Whitfield might have it slightly wrong. That actually A-levels in particular and going to university is not the be-all and end-all anymore. Alice, 2 years ago you did them.
Yes, certainly not. Obviously, I did my A-levels during the COVID pandemic, so I had to do my exams online, which did create some trouble and stress in itself. But ultimately, it also gave me the opportunity to also just spend time during lockdown as well, reflecting on other things. And I think I was able to grow a lot personally because of the lockdown, thankfully. But on the subject of different, I guess, paths for children, I think apprenticeships should be something that is very much promulgated more by the government, because they are a very good option into entering the world of work without having to go to university and and waste time there, perhaps. So, yeah.
Well, I come back, Angelica. I mentioned in the introduction, I mentioned one of my sisters who works, at the co-op in Bradford behind the till, and I think she does more for social cohesion by chatting to customers and being an absolute pillar of her community than any number of highly credentialed people who've got degrees. She does know the way the world works. She is a fantastic figure within that society locally. She earns bugger all, certainly a fraction of what Joe Whitfield, who we're talking about now. And I just wish we could reframe the debate. I mean, it's easy for me to say that, isn't it? I've been to university. I am quite highly credentialed. I'm earning a decent amount of lolly. Easy for me to say. And I'm certainly not saying to my kids, actually, your exams don't matter. But I wish I could.
And if we look in the boom in entrepreneurship, last year there was more companies registered in the UK than ever before. So more and more people are starting their own businesses as well and circumventing the need to have a degree. So there's lots of different things happening now.